Welcome to
Dude.
Decades of Horror, the classic era.
My face frightens me. Chad's face frightens me even more.
This is episode 95, recorded March 8th, 2021.
Gruesome Magazine.
And how's that for a rim shot? Oh, I see that look.
Look at that sad puppy look.
Okay, Daphne, welcome to the club. All bets are off now. All bets are off now.
You were his favorite.
Yes.
I just couldn't help it.
Mhm. Jeff sent you an instant message, didn't he?
You got your back.
No, it was, it was Planet of the Vampire
I have
Alien.
no idea what that means.
All right, I am your host, Jeff Mohr. On this podcast, we cover the good, the bad, and maybe even the ugly horror films released since the beginning of time through 1969. In each episode, we'll discuss the monster, spirit, psychos, and villains that have haunted movie-going audiences since the dawn of film history. With me this week are my incredible co-ghosts. First up is Whitney Kayatso, an accomplished artist, makeup artist, and writer. How are you, Whitney?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, too.
Good. I guess.
Second, but not first, is Chad Hunt, co-host on Decades of Horror in the 1970s and 1980s, film producer and director with Wreak Havoc Productions, a comic book artist and writer. How are you, Chad? Oh, I'm sorry. Masky Heidi face.
Well, I was doing pretty good till I learned my face scares people. Maybe I should.
Now.
Maybe I
You're
should
just finding that
really
out now,
borrow a
right?
mask. My mom lied to me all these years.
Yes.
No, I'm good.
Lord wife.
Good to be here tonight.
All right, great. Also with us is Daphne, our stupendous and awesome costume maker and quote ad-libber and likable as hell. And you'll soon see where that comes from. How you doing, Daphne?
I'm doing great. It's so nice to see you guys again.
Yeah,
Most of you, anyway.
Likewise.
Long time no see, eh?
You notice how I didn't say anything.
Yes, I did.
And also with us, last but not least, is Bill Mulligan, writer, director, special effects.
Perks. Yeah.
Doc's been teaching me how to talk.
Gesundheit.
Special effects guru.
Yeah.
An all-around nice
Lord.
guy. And a guest.
What
for
is
this
going on
episode
around here?
For a reason. He was a
Yes.
guest.
Yes, and I really
We
appreciate
invited
this.
him.
This is my favorite horror movie, which makes it one of my favorite movies because horror movies are my favorite. And whenever people say, "What's your favorite movie?" It's like, I could go into a long, I could go into a long thing about how difficult that is. So I just decided to settle on this is the one that I love, and it doesn't have enough recognition. So it's an easy one to say, I love this film. When they say, I can start talking about it. So.
Well, and thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I just wish
It
I've had
is.
all kinds of technical trouble today. Oh, that didn't help. Well, whatever.
You're fine, Bill.
I mean, look,
You're
I like this movie so much. It's even on my wall. It's a little low, but there it is.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Well, let's get
Okay,
to
Billy.
that. Doing the dance. Well, as you have figured out, hopefully, our topic today is Eyes Without a Face, or let's use sans visage.
Yeah, I think the X and the S and oh my God, face without a voice.
Well,
That's
which is it's a French film, so that's the original title, directed by.
you got a different word for
So
everything.
somebody help me with French. How do you say? Is it just Georges?
Georges Franju. Only reason I know that is I have a friend named Georges.
Oh, okay.
And that's how you pronounce it.
I thought it was Franju with a J, but
Franju too.
right back at you.
It's from a novel written by Jean Redon, and I'm just making up pronunciations here as we go. The screenplay or the adaptation had many hands involved, not the least of which was Jean Redon himself, but also a pair that worked together as Boileau-Narcejac, I think, something like that. But Pierre Boileau and Thomas Narcejac.
Or if the French didn't hate us before, they're going to hate us after this podcast.
Thank you very much. And Claude Sautet, I'm just going to say it, and Pierre Gascar, who worked on some of the dialogue. Cast, oh boy, is Pierre Brasseur, Alida Valli, Edith, is it Scobe?
Sure.
I reckon.
Juliette Maniel, Beatrice Alteriba, Francois Guerin, and Alexandra Rignal. Release dates, and this is very strange. IMDb said January 11th, but yet in France, 1960. But Wikipedia said March 10th in Paris. So I don't know. Maybe January 11th was a screening. March 10th was a grand release. I don't know. Released in the U.S. in October 24th, 1962. Filming dates February 10th to April 5th, 1959, and it was filmed in France.
Well, that explains all those names.
It explains the language of the film as well, right? So, a few more things. Oh boy, production company Champs-Élysées Productions, Champs-Élysées, and Lux Film. We did some of the also known as, but this is just a bizarre film. We have in the U.S. A dubbed version was called The Horror Chamber of Dr. Faustus.
Yeah.
And they didn't even bother changing his name to Dr. Faustus in the dubbing, apparently. Yes. But then the Germans thought that's not enough. They had to come up with their own doctor name, Das Schreckenhaus des Rassenhof. The House of Horrors of Dr. Rassenhof. Just way scarier than Dr. Faustus, I guess. I don't know. And I've got no information on box office. There was some small numbers listed, but they were actually for the 2003 re-release, which I guess was the first uncut version, undubbed version released in the U.S.
I have some information on box office. It says right here there was a box office in front of every theater that this movie was shown.
And I bet there is.
That's what it says.
With that, Chad, let's hear.
Go to your room.
The one tagline. There's only one tagline for this film, and it may be one of the worst taglines. But I'm sure you'll read it excellently.
Okay. Beautiful women were the victims of his fiendish facials, which sounds like a dozen porn movie tagline.
His fiendish facials. I mean,
International Women's Month, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's true.
pretty
I've seen
bad.
that tagline on a dozen. Well, never mind. We won't get
I don't
into
want
it.
to know.
yeah.
It's better that way.
You got to figure they didn't watch this movie.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
If so, that's the worst facial. Don't go to that salon, guys. Don't ever go to that salon. You'll walk out looking like John Travolta or Nick Cage.
Ugh.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'm not going there.
Excuse me, this isn't the face I had when I came in here.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
This is Daphne's pick.
Oh,
So
sorry.
let's go to first impressions here. Daphne? Oh, when was the first time you saw this, and What did you think of it?
The first time I saw it was just a couple of weeks ago.
Excellent.
But the image of Christian's masked face, of course, I've seen tons and tons of times and have wanted to watch. So I was really excited to be able to see it. And I really liked it. I definitely feel like it's something that maybe I need to watch a few more times. Like, I felt like listening to a little bit of the extras kind of helped me maybe catch some stuff that I wouldn't have caught just watching it. Even though I think that it's a really good movie just watching it. I think it's really scary. I think it's really graphic. I think it's really unsettling. And it just gave me a lot to think about that I'm really looking forward to talk to you guys about. I really liked it though, definitely.
Yeah. That's a excellent film. Thank you. Nice pick.
Yeah.
Whitney, what did you think of Eyes Without a Face?
Well, like, again, it's one of these films that I just recently watched, and it's something that I have seen over and over, time and time again, as far as the artwork, and I've heard of it, and I've been interested in it, and I'm just thrilled that finally we've had the chance to take a look at it, because of all days to kind of think about and talk about something that is traumatic for a young woman to go through with a father that is controlling, to bring up an issue is, of all days, is International Women's Day. And so we're about to take a look and a talk about some fiendish and female energies that are both awesome and creepy.
Yeah, you're right, both ways.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Chad Hunt. Had you seen this before, and what's your first impression? What do you think of it now?
I've never seen this before till a couple of days ago. I've always heard of it. Seen, like you guys have said, I've seen the posters, the artwork, and that kind of thing, but I've never seen it. So watching it, I was totally into this movie. It's a great movie. The story for the time is, I guess it could have been pretty controversial, and I guess it was. I've seen many most shocking, those videos you see, most shocking moments in movies, and this is always in the top 10 of the operation of the face being removed and that kind of thing. But that's kind of the but there's way more to this movie than that. This movie is there were times it was just heartbreaking, especially when Christiane was begging to die, and you just felt that from her. You felt that desperation, and you felt that you made you imagine what could this possibly be like when you really were supposed to die and you didn't, and your father was keeping you alive, and not only keeping you alive, but keeps putting different faces on you to try to get you to retain the face of his daughter. It was just that subject matter alone, you just didn't see that very much in this era of movie making. And so I was totally drawn into this movie and loved it. The performances were great. Again, the performance by the actress that played Christiana, is it Christiana? I might be saying it wrong. Was just every time she was on screen, even though that mask was just this emotionless Michael Myers mask, her performance was just pulled you into it. And just a great movie, shot beautifully. For a black and white film, it's just looked amazing. And I really liked the characters in here too. You really, it wasn't just a run of the mill horror movie. You know, it's not. It's psychological horror. Yeah, there's gross out scenes that are kind of gross. But overall, it's just a fine film, and I really, really enjoyed it, and plan on watching it again soon.
Yeah.
So there.
It is. It's excellent. So, Bill Mulligan, what did you think of this movie that I've heard you call your favorite movie of all time?
You see, it was actually a long time before I got to see it. I had, as a kid, I had a book, the Encyclopedia of Horror Movies, I think it was called. It was a really large hardstock book, green cover, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms on the cover. I wanted to find it so I could show the picture. And it was a great book because it talked about foreign films that were never playing on TV, Japanese stuff. There's still a few films I'm trying to track down from my memories. I read this book religiously, literally just going over and wondering, a frame and the name of the movie, and that's all I got, maybe a short description. And in fact, it's one of the things that I have in the graphics here. I'll point it out when it shows up. It's just a picture of her, and she's looking off forlorn. I mean, it was heartbreaking. It was one of the saddest looking pictures I've ever seen. This is one of the saddest films and one of the most poetic films. And normally when people try to make a poetic film, it comes off to me as often pretentious. But this one, it's effortless. When I finally got to track it down, and it was one of those things where I've been wanting to see what that story is for a long time. I know I'm going to be disappointed. And I wasn't. I was just sucked right into it. And I did know that they had a graphic scene, but I figured 1959, how graphic could it be? Okay, I got it. When I saw that, I just thought to myself, people would have run for the exit in 1959 watching this. I mean, my grandmother almost fell off the balcony during one of the Psycho scenes. The standard was different then. And then the ending, if it wasn't enough, the ending blew me away. It's just so beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I love horror. I don't like violence. I'm not a violent person. I'm not attracted to violence. I don't like to see things, in real life. But I love horror, and I love it when they're able to somehow, some films just manage to transcend the gore and violence and be able to show carnage in a way that's beautiful. And it's not usually often able to be done. Suspiria is one that does it in a much more graphic, kind of over the top way than this. But this one, I mean, that ending is awful. Being killed by dogs is one of the worst ways to go. And so you've got this horrible death for this person who deserves it, but still. And meanwhile, you've got this figure that looks like she came out of a Renaissance painting or something. She is just unnaturally graceful. She has an incredibly long neck. You always see her eyes, but that's enough. Birds, she's holding a dove. I mean, I'm just like, I got to rewind this and just watch the last 10 minutes again. I couldn't believe how beautiful this was. And that's it. I fell in love with this film, and I will never fall out of love with it. I watch it at least once a year. And there's one more film he made, Judex, which I have never been able to watch all the way through because I was looking for a good copy, and I think I may have missed my chance that there was a copy on TV. Because once I watched this, I realized I did not want to invest in any lousy gray market dupes, and I'm glad I didn't do it with this film. The one that I saw was actually a good copy, because this was a hard film to see for a long time, and the only way you could see it was to get a copy of a copy on VHS, and it would look grainy and it looked like garbage. So, this is a film I'd say, if you don't have a good copy, wait until you do. Don't ruin the experience of what to me is just one of the most beautiful horror movies ever made. Almost a fairy tale with horror elements in it. Wonderful.
Yeah. I completely agree. The thing that really struck me is the cinematography too, because it seems like you're talking about how beautiful it is. It's one of those movies that feels like every shot is intentional. There isn't any like, oh, I'm just showing these two people talking in the room. It's the cameras, we've got a downward angle, we've got upward angles, we've got lots of symmetry and architecture and all kinds of stuff built in, and shadows in every single shot. It just, I almost wanted to pause it and just sit there and look at the shot for a while. it's amazing. And I agree with the it's incredibly graphic, but by making a large part of that seem like a medical procedure, it doesn't feel as horrifying, unless you really think about what he's doing, removing somebody else's face for a face transplant. But that's amazing that he did that in 1960. So yeah, I like everything about it. Her face. I mean, there's some shots where she's crying, and you see tears going down her mask, which is very weird. It just gave me kind of a just otherworldly kind of feel to it. So lots of shots like that. I'm going to pull up, as he often does, Bill, put together some things for us, and he can help us through these. I didn't end up talking about the poster in the original shot, but there's kind of the original poster, and I mean, that's disturbing. That her father, the doctor, just is, the way he grabs that first woman that they capture, that was just like, it just puts through the you never know, right? It just really hits you with the never know.
He kind of reminds me of the Peter Lorre character in Mad Love, in that he is a genuinely brilliant doctor and does help people. He has the capacity to do that, which makes the fact that he is able to, without apparently a whole lot of guilt, kill, destroy, maim these women for his goal, make him all the more monstrous. I think the worst monsters are the ones that you see, a guy who's one of the worst Nazis, but had a loving family that he obviously cared for. It's like, well, that's worse, because it shows you're capable of love, but you decided to give it up for your day job.
And I forget her name, but there's a well-known Jewish historian, and I think maybe she's even a psychologist, that referred to it as Nazi Germany as the banality of evil, where it's just, you do something like this and then you turn around and go on a picnic with your kids or something.
I think that might have come from during the trial of Eichmann, when, this monster who was one of the architects of the Holocaust is sitting there in a glass booth. And when you looked at him, you thought, this guy's a shipping clerk. There's nothing frightening about him, but he was capable of the worst kind of monstrosity.
So there's that one. Then we have Eyes Without a Face. And there's actually a bunch of almost like literary quotes on here, isn't there? Ingredients: the incredible amalgam of horror and fairy tale, a marvelous movie in the fullest sense, the most horrid horror film you could fear to see. I know there's another.
They did try to, kind of point out that it was celebrated. It was, kind of an art film in its own unique way. But then again, they changed it to the horror chamber of Dr. Faustus and started talking about facials. So, they didn't really know what to do with this. Sticking with Manster, that's the plan.
Yeah. So the woman that wrote that Banality of Evil is Hannah Arendt, Arendt. But it is about Eichmann.
There's so much in this movie. There's just so much. When I was thinking about just what I was going to talk to you guys about, it was like, how am I going to, whatever. Sorry to drop that in the middle of all those, just showing us the posters, but
that's fine.
Listening to everybody talk about it, it's just like, wow. So, but show more posters.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful and disturbing movie. And sad, as Bill said. And here we are.
So this must have been since they rated it X.
Yeah, the garish green too.
Well, that's the thing. Even though this, like Bill said, the they built it up like a procedure, like a medical procedure. And that was shocking, I'm sure. Like I said earlier, the horror of it for me came from Christiane and her performance, making it really made me think about and put me in her shoes and made me empathic toward her her plight. And that, to me, that's where the horror came from, is living that existence and, you know, and wanting to be dead and not being able to die. And then as she slowly sort of just lost her, you know, became more insane as the movie close toward it. Was just a sad, but yet poetic and beautiful, like you guys brought out at the same time, but incredibly sad and incredibly horrific. And that's where the horror came from for me. Not that this doctor was doing all these horrendous things, and because we've seen that a billion times in horror movies, but there was just something about that character that just really resonated with me, and to me, that was the most horrible thing.
Certainly, this plot has been ripped off how many times? I mean,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
has made a bunch, and so, you know, people watch it, they may think, this is kind of an old story. It's like, yeah, this is the old story everybody else stole from, you know, and never better than here.
Well, it's strange how you run across things that seem similar at the same time. I don't know if that made any sense. But my wife was watching a series on Netflix called, in English, it's called The Bonfire of Destinies, I think. But it's a French series, and the French title is something like Bazaar of the Charities. And in, I believe it's 1897, they've been having this big bazaar of all the aristocratic people in the area, especially the women, that would come all together for these charities for like 10 or 12 years. And in 1897, they had a huge fire, and 120 people, something like that, were killed. And the whole series plays off that. So there's a woman who is saved, but her face is horribly scarred. And someone who knows it's not their daughter grabs her and says it's their daughter. And people can't tell. So in the meantime, when she sees her lover or her fiance or something, she has to keep her mouth shut. I don't know. All this like restricted love, you know, like Christiane couldn't contact Jacques because she was afraid of what he would think. Plus he thinks she's dead. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because her father is the one that said that Jacques would be told that she's dead. And that's all because of what happened. And that's because of what happened in the opening scene, right? Because that's the woman that he had taken, not he, she, her caretaker, or I can't pronounce the woman's name, or the assistant and caretaker. I'm not good with these names.
I think her name was Louise, wasn't it? Or
Yes,
I don't
yes.
remember them
Yeah.
using her name, but that's what they.
I think it was Louise too. Yeah.
I'm not even going to try with some of these names because I don't want to butcher them.
You've done enough of that, yeah.
But yes, because
Thank you.
that opening scene there established, well, this is what's going to happen to Christiane, and it's not her. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and what you were saying about this I don't know if it's not unrequited love, but you can't. She just couldn't be herself. She was taken away from her by her father, who is so arrogant and overpowering that even the cause of her facial, her losing her face
identity
is because of him. Her identity is because of him. Like, he's responsible for the accident, and she doesn't really, And then he tells her to wear the mask. Like, she can't even now be who she is,
Right.
this scarred person. This is who she is, and he tells her to wear a mask. You know, it's like he just still just wants her to be this perfect thing. And so she just can't, and it has nothing to do really with her. But I do believe that he really loved her. And that's one of those things about this movie. There's so many things that are contradictions, because clearly, and the actor did such a great job of being cold, but also clearly loving his daughter, and caring about some of his patients. But, you know, it didn't have anything to do with her, really. I mean, it just didn't matter. Like, even when she would try to tell him that she knew that she wasn't happy with what was going on, he just would get upset, or he'd get offended that she didn't have faith in him or something. It was really all about him and his ego. And
that's
so
exactly right.
Yeah, so she, even in that, even just to live, she couldn't be herself. She had to be this other thing, and I also found that really sad. And then she had to kind of watch her life around her. And even when he said, "Oh, wouldn't it be fun to go and you'll have your travel, you'll take on a new take on a new name," and it's just like she had no control or in any agency.
I think you're right. He did love his daughter, but I think the main goal was to fix his mistake, the guilt that he caused this, and isn't able to fix it. And he's willing to do anything to erase what he sees as like this stain against him. Which, you know, it's one thing to be committing all these atrocities in the name of love. It's still an evil act, but you know, you can see some potential for redemption or understanding. But that's not really it. You know, I think if he did fix her face, he'd be like, "Okay, go off now, and let's never speak of this again."
Right.
And
Well, even
just a little porcelain doll.
I was even thinking, like, I was trying to think of some times when I felt like he was really thinking, like, "Oh, I have had to do some horrible things for this." Like, he does know that, but it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It really doesn't mean that much to him.
It's not enough to him. Not enough for him to stop it.
Well, and he even
go ahead.
When he goes to identify his daughter's body, who's not his daughter's body, the father of the person who it really is, he runs into him.
My heart,
yeah, and he still manages to try to make that guy feel guilty.
Yeah, making it about him.
I'm supposed to help you. Look, at least you have help. What?
Right. Yeah. Right. At least you have hope that your daughter is alive still. Why should I comfort you?
Right.
I'm like, that's his daughter.
The worst. I think we're always willing to believe bad things about surgeons because there's sort of an inherent contradiction in surgery that you're cutting into someone, you're causing them damage and harm, but it's to improve something, to cut out a malignancy or fix something. But it's a violent act. It's inherently a violent act. So there's that contradiction there, and so it's easy to imagine. I'm not saying all surgeons are like this. I've known many surgeons, and they're great people. But it's easy to imagine someone who kind of loses track of where the do no harm aspect comes in. You know, that this is someone who's willing to break a lot of eggs to make the omelet. And these lives don't just seem to matter. Louise is a more interesting character, really, because she genuinely loves Christiana. I mean, there's this affection there, and she's a good actress. The two of them together is just some wonderful stuff. And yet she's going along with this. She's a willing accomplice. She obviously is in love with the doctor and is grateful for what he did for her, and just has completely lost track of what they're doing. That all these women they're killing are just as valid as Christiana. You know, how can you kill one, take away one daughter to try to fix another one?
Yeah, that scene with the other father was just that was so hard, that scene. And it's like right away in the beginning, even though you know that this is kind of what they're doing, is just for him to be so callous and even lie to this person who he's taken his daughter away from. I just like, wow, you're on a whole nother level. Like, what's going on in your head?
Well, I was reading too that the novel that this is based on, I hope I read it right or understood it right, but the doctor was more of a mad scientist character. So, and they had to kind of tone that down for the
I'm glad
European censors. But they maybe that's just an after effect of him being this mad scientist character, that he was just so aloof and didn't care about anything.
Because this actor could have played crazy if he wanted to. He was famous for playing Rasputin, where I'm sure he swung for the fences. So if they wanted that kind of performance, they could have gotten it. But that doesn't seem like the sort of thing that Franju was going for.
Well, there's an interview with Franju where he says what I'm going to say now, but it was also in Wikipedia as information, and it said, in order to avoid problems with European censors, the producer, Jules Bourcon, cautioned Franju not to include too much blood, which would upset the French censors, and wanted him to refrain from showing animals getting tortured, which would upset English censors, and leave out mad scientist characters, which would upset Germans. They were still overly sensitive about
he really didn't
World War II or something.
This guy's advice at all, did he?
Well, according to him, he did some things to make it, to even it up. So they made the doctor a really sort of a brilliant surgeon that also helped somebody. And I can't remember what movie we watched recently where, I think that's Mad Love.
Yeah.
He does the same thing. He helps somebody, but at the same time, he's just this evil. So he's supposedly helping this little girl, right? Or the woman's child. So anyway, I thought the opening scene in the car was a great table setter, I guess, or entree or appetizer for the start of the film to show you where it was going. She's driving in this car. You get all these great shots of the lights behind her, and then she looks in the mirror, and you see this kind of crumpled body in the back seat with a hat on. It just was like, that doesn't look good. I don't know what's in that, but what the hell?
And for something that was so covered up, I could just totally picture what was underneath that hat, what was in that. It was like my mind was just
crumpled, right?
Scalpel, and that's all I could think of.
You could just barely see what was going on in the face. If you were to rewind that back a little bit, you could see a little bit of that makeup, and I'm glad that they had that small detail for you to just have that eyesore.
Yeah.
Well, and the way she drags the body, Louise drags the body down the bank and dumps it in the, I don't know, the canal or whatever that is, the river. Just kerplop, sort of like it is a precursor to when the doctor drops the body into the grave. It's just like we're not careful at all. We just drag it up and thump.
This isn't a person. Yeah.
Well, we do have some more posters here. Now, this is, I think this was just the cover of the Criterion Blu-ray, right? Yeah. Which is interesting in itself. And then we have to pull this up. We spent so much time going in circles around it with Planet of the Vampires.
There we go.
It was released in the U.S. as a double feature with The Manster.
The Manster.
Yeah.
As
I love how
two
this
great things that go great together.
Yes.
Like Reese's Cups.
Or chamber.
Calling it mature, yes, Eyes Without a Face is a mature horror film. Manster is in the sense that it's too sleazy for children to really fully appreciate. But it's and I love Manster. Don't get me wrong.
That's
Manster.
disturbing. It's on one hand really bad effects, but on the other hand, really disturbing.
Right? And
the doctor, and then the ending scene just totally creeped me out. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Then all of a sudden, what?
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's got very adult situations and characters, but it's not poetic. Well, I guess in its own way.
Well, it's not Eyes Without a Face. No.
Let's put it that way. They're both movies that you remember. Like I'll go to my grave trying to get the memory of that guy's eye on his shoulder out of my head. It's stuck there. So, but yeah, I just would like to know what was going through their minds when they said, what two movies do we put together? This poetic French horror thing, and something about a guy with a big coconut head on his shoulder running around strangling people in Japan.
Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah.
We'll pair fiendish facials with two-headed monster.
Yeah.
I don't think they saw the movie.
Well, they both have faces.
Yeah.
Well, they both have faces, yeah. And Bill, I was looking around this afternoon, and I found this.
Nice.
I assume Japanese.
Cool.
I thought that is actually kind of nice.
That's pretty
That is nice.
I love their collage posters.
Yes. We get the body of the one woman who jumps out the window, the other one screaming, the surgery. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That could go on my wall.
Okay. Well, let's get at some of these characters, and I'm going to say,
oh wow,
yes,
who recognized her? I was watching her, and I thought, oh my God, I actually recognized her. I kept thinking, who is that? I'm like,
I didn't.
wow.
I did not.
So,
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking of Lisa and the Devil. Yeah. I did not.
and the
recognize
woman
her.
in Suspiria.
in Suspiria.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I remember when we were doing Suspiria and I was looking up graphics and stuff, and I'm like, okay, boy, she is one scary Flau Blucher type in this movie. I'll bet she was pretty when she was young, and I was just thinking that as a joke, and then I looked her up, and it's like, holy, she was ravishing beautiful when she was young. And I'm sure she could have. Yeah, I'm sure she looked fine too when she was older, but she could play real scary German monster Frau if she wanted to. She was a good actress.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like in this movie, I mean, she wasn't like she definitely had a bigger role in this movie, but I felt like there was a lot of depth to her character in this movie. And the other ones, she wasn't the central character, but I just remember when I was watching her, and I didn't at all recognize her as being the actress from the other movies, but I just remember being like, wow, there are a lot of women in this movie, which is really cool. And in some ways they're kind of more archetypes, or you don't really get to see the depth to them. But her, even though she's a bad guy or whatever, I just felt like she was so good at portraying this real person. I totally believed that she was real, even though she was doing these horrible things.
Her death scene is heartbreaking because her expression, I think she's more horrified by the fact of who killed her than the fact that she's been killed.
Right.
Yeah. How could you do this? And I'm like,
well,
yes.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
go ahead, Whitney.
Oh, it's just with her duality and her, with the way that she had to care for Christiane. Is that, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure about the names. But yeah, how she had to care for her, but also there was that toxic boundary and the way she had to, or she felt she had to take care of her, and the things that she had said to her that was, how would I say, it just made you just look at her like, well, she is that, she is that bad guy. She is that toxic person. That is that relationship where she really makes Christiane so codependent on her, and for those reasons of what they're doing to her, and especially towards the end, like you said, why it's so sad for her to feel that betrayal and how she was killed.
Yeah, and that when you were talking about the duality, and how she died, it made me think a lot when Christiane is begging to have her kill her. She even knows, father has this medicine he used for the dogs, and just begging her for her to release her. And Louise is almost angry, like, you don't have a right to do that. All this stuff that we've done for you, you don't have. And it was like, wow, yeah, this poor woman has nothing. She's nothing.
Right. Not to get into actual politics or anything, but when you look at some of the stories that have come out in the last few years, the toxic men, the Me Too monsters and everything, it's not rare that they had female accomplices who enabled their behavior and are not, they're probably not deserving of the same punishment, but they may not have been able to get away with everything they did if they didn't have these people who were able to cover for them and clean up the dirty work and pay off the right people and do all that. And
Well,
that's kind of where she is.
It's true, especially in this story when Louise, she meets that woman saying she has the ticket, and she's really manipulative. And then what is it that we as ladies do? We're like, oh well, you know, we think, oh, it's harmless, and we trust someone else of our own sex. So, and she used that to her advantage because that's what she is.
Yeah. They wouldn't get in the car with him.
No.
So, and she was totally a predator in the sense, sitting in the car when she lit the cigarette and was just watching people. Yes. I was just like, wow. I couldn't put my finger exactly on, but it was so subtle too. But it was just like, this is a predator. She knows what she's doing. And yeah, that actress was pretty amazing because that character was like you said, Whitney, her duality but I felt her feelings like when she was like you said, betrayed that Christian would kill her. I mean, she really was hurt. She really felt betrayed, and the way she died. I mean, her face just dropped like the other bodies, just kind of. No, I mean it was
so well that too. But and I'm not telling anybody to watch this, but if you watch Franju's, what's it called, Beast of Blood, Blood of the Beast. It's about a 20-minute short of the abattoirs in Paris. I believe it's 1947. And they show horses, cattle, calves for veal, sheep, and when they kill the animals, that's what it reminded me of. Because when she sank down like that, and then all of a sudden her head just went clunk, like it was just, you know, it was like that reminded me of that a little bit. I don't know if he pulled it from there or not, because this was quite a while later. But it also kind of mirrors the way they got rid of the bodies too, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting.
Just treating them like they're animals, just treating them like they're nothing. And yes, I've seen that, and I've seen that beast. I can't say it, but I've seen that with the animals, and yeah, I don't care to watch that again. Never.
No. No. And so her career goes back to 1935. And was in things like The Third Man. What's the Hitchcock movie? The Paradigm Case, I believe. So yeah, she had quite a career, over like 130 credits.
She didn't become,
but she was
the way some of the reports did. But she's got an amazing list of films.
According to some of the info on her, it said that she was dubbed the next Garbo, but it didn't quite live up to that in post-war.
That's a hard thing to live up to.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, but holy cow, who could say they were in three? At least in The Devil's not really a landmark film, but it's a Bava film, and to be in Suspiria and Eyes Without a Face and have such key roles, it's amazing.
And they're each so different.
Right.
Yeah. I think this one really is multifaceted. So let's take a look at so that was Alida Valli, I think. So here's Edith Scob.
That picture in the middle is the one that made me fall in love with this film. That is the picture that they had in, I believe, is the one that they had in that book. And I'm just looking at it. And at first, I didn't even realize it was a mask. And then I was like, oh, so is that her neck? I mean, the outfit is amazing. She's a naturally beautiful woman. If you even the short, brief little bit that we had in here where she was restored with her actual face, very beautiful. Didn't get used a lot, but stayed pretty much in France. Didn't really make the jump over to America. Made several more with Franju, and she's in Brotherhood of the Wolf. is one of the last films that you might be able to see her in. She's an aristocrat. She stayed beautiful as she got old. She kind of like that some people are blessed with those Audrey Hepburn genes, where they do age, but they're like the most beautiful 40-year-old and the most beautiful 50-year-old and the most beautiful 60-year-old. There's just something about them that, you know, changes with the time but remains just sort of exquisite. And
that
amazing.
bottom picture too, that outfit she has on in that bottom just made her look like a little China doll.
Yes.
You know, and that sort of fit in with how he looked at her. Like she was more of an object,
Exactly.
you know, a beautiful object that had a crack in it and he needed to fix it and that kind of thing, which I thought was a kind of a brilliant touch.
Exactly. And you're talking about the actress definitely had a natural grace to her. And even with the mask, her acting, it's like sometimes I was just drawn to the mask thinking about how good of a mask it was, even though it was so blank. Yeah.
Well, her eyes were so expressive.
Yeah.
She was
told
really
the story
delicate.
with her eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Delicate is a good word. Yeah.
She was really delicate even with her own hands. Like when she approached the body on the table.
Yes.
And, you know, and she was just like, I mean, she was delicate with how she would you know, approach things like that, for example, and just the way her movement was. And even to the very end, like that, just like you said, so much grace to the very end as she just makes her exit towards freedom.
Yeah.
And you know what that makes me think of? I was watching her, how she moved just in general, like you were saying, very delicate and very kind of doll-like. But when she cut the straps on the woman, one of the victims, and she stabbed Louise, that was violent. That was there wasn't any delicateness in
in
that.
that, no.
In those two actions. And
which made it so unexpected.
Right.
Exactly.
And just coming at her like that, it was just, I didn't think about that, but you're right, because I was so focused on her being so delicate, but that was really violent and intense.
It almost seems like she's like a spirit inhabiting this place.
Yeah.
Those two actions are the one time that she appears human, like she becomes part of the horror of what's going on all around her. Yeah. And that seems to be the total break with and then we go into the ending, and I just love the way the animals just treat her as if she is some sort of benevolent spirit and everything.
Especially when she, like, again, how she moved with her hands, and when she would approach the dogs, I was nervous to see that dynamic. And because, I mean, how well do they know her, you know? How is her presence going to fit with this? So it's very much known that they are used to her, that she's been there, that she's there, because she was going in there, touching them, and in the most loving way, because she knows that they're like her, they're being treated and handled for the same reasons as she's there. It's all because of her.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she even would rub her face on the dog's face, and
You're right. They are exactly like her. They're innocent creatures that are being tortured for someone else's madness. And,
so how poetic that she set them all free as she was walking out of the building.
Right.
Oh, that's a great picture.
Yes.
I mean,
I love that bottom
could tear her head off.
Yes.
I want that dog. I want that dog on the bottom.
Like the scenes here with the dogs. I mean, gosh, that photo is beautiful. And I was nervous watching it at first because I thought, I had no idea, but I'm like, oh, it's because she's looking at herself and these animals. That's the relationship. Yes, it's poetic.
Well, and I feel like they sense that she's
like
good, or that she's, or like you said, like them, or like a spirit almost, or just has this goodness to her. And I was even impressed as an actress how I didn't see any sort of flinching or anything. Even when he's like, you could see the dog's breath on her face going through her hair, and Yeah, that was a really intense scene.
And you're right, because it is a little nerve-wracking when you're working with animals that aren't your own.
Yes.
And you're wearing a mask, you just start thinking, well, what happened? What happened to Jennifer Connelly with that chimpanzee and Phenomena? It didn't end.
Yeah.
Animals have their own agendas, and
He's in your bathroom shower, Bill, with the scalpel.
There's a severed hand heading your way right now, FedEx.
And
well, she said I saw an interview with her, and she said it was a little
worth the sacrifice.
She was a little freaked out about that scene.
Oh,
Was she?
okay.
Because she didn't know how the dogs would react with the mask on and stuff too. If that would,
Yeah, I'd have the director put the mask on and show me how he wants to block this scene.
Right.
there you go.
Yeah.
Show me.
Well, she certainly didn't show that in her performance because I was just she seemed so comfortable. Even when she was releasing the doves at the end, and there was just all this wind being brought up by them and feathers flying everywhere, she was like totally seems totally at ease.
Yeah.
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 It
That was a weird.
piece.
That was another one of those really interesting shots. There's some shots from back at one end of that, for lack of a better word, a kennel, but those are the weirdest dog cages I've ever seen. They were downright medieval looking.
Something from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but looking down that aisle and seeing those cages lined up like that, and with the dogs in them, and I at first when we kept hearing the dogs bark, and I kept, I don't know, I was a little slow on the uptake. I'm like, well, what's with the dogs? Why does he have all these dogs? Are these all guard dogs? What's going on? And finally, it dawned on me. And I think there is one scene where they show apparently he's patched the hide from one dog onto another one, and
probably without benefit of any anesthesia. So these dogs have good reason to tear him up at the end.
Well, these are some pictures you found that show Christiane and Louise's character together, which are
I love that middle shot. That middle, it's just
yes. And is that the one where there's a very quick, short scene where she shows them her scar behind the pearls?
Yes. I remember that.
Which, and you know what? They don't tell us where that comes from. We know that he performed some surgery and that's the, I don't know, the splice in some way of some kind, but we don't know what it was from, when it happened, how serious it was. But she owes, that's what has created her allegiance. And
so isn't it interesting that she stabs her right in the pearls?
Yes.
Yep.
Well, and that comes back around too when the police are looking for him and somebody's describing her. They suddenly go, "Oh, yes, she had these like a pearl choker around her neck." So,
and the thought that they were covering up her scar didn't even dawn on me. But when she showed that, I was like, okay. I just felt like it wasn't super obvious, at least not to me. But it was an interesting part of her character that she would still have some vanity to cover, to cover her neck up with it.
Yeah.
I wonder, or is that something the doctor insisted? He just
maybe. Who knows? Yeah.
Scars. So
very good point.
The mask, the other wears the pearls.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
I didn't think about that either. Yeah.
I mean, just pulling this out of my rear end. I don't know if any of it's.
Well, I mean,
But
it makes
I'll
sense.
tell you, I got to tell you, I love talking about this film with 4 super intelligent people who can get it, because I'm usually in the position of trying to explain this movie, and they're like, "Yeah, I think I saw that movie where the guy was slicing up people's faces and putting them back on." I was like, "No, you saw like one of 100 variations on this theme.
Yeah.
They're all exploiting garbage, but this one,
well, here's the bad guy, Daddy. Getting ready to do his. Nah, I'm not going to say it. I did notice he just wasn't very good at putting his mask on.
Yeah.
And then Louise, who's helping him, her mask perfect fitted.
Perfect. Exactly. That was perplexing.
That's the worst mask ever. just flopping around like a frog's jowl.
You
down
can just
there.
put your hands in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the eyes in this center photo too.
Mhm.
He is.
He's very intense.
Mhm.
He's
Yeah,
a
he
low
is.
key villain, but he's intense. And
His look and his voice
Yes.
are both very.
He is all the way
intense.
through. You know.
Mhm.
We start off seeing him in that. He's very rigid and
Mhm.
upright. Right. He's
Mhm.
stiff.
well, he's definitely stiff in his last shot, but he's loosened up a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah. In that last one, he definitely has.
I was actually a little
but what kind
surprised
of?
when he
You said
slapped
he was. So he
Louise.
played Rasputin.
Yes.
I think that would be good.
Yeah. What were you saying, Daphne?
I was just saying that I was a little surprised when he actually slapped Louise, because that seemed, I guess, because he was so kind of cold, and but I guess he did show some emotion other times, when talking to Christiane and stuff. But that was probably just a way that he, messed with her, occasionally, being physical, and then occasionally saying, I've hurt you too, and all this stuff.
Well, that was another great shot when all you see is her, and she's surrounded by these white flowers from the wreath or the I don't know, whatever that tomb was. I don't. It was creepy and maybe foretold some things.
Maybe. I also really liked when she was outside of the place where the bodies were, and there was an airplane going overhead, and she was just kind of like freaking out, losing it a little bit. And I just was like, I was wondering, like, what are you thinking about? What is, like, it almost made me wonder what had happened to her at that point. But I was fine that I didn't know anything more about that. But I just felt like her passion or something about her acting in there. I felt like there was more there.
So I thought one of his best moments was when he realizes that the graft didn't take, and he underplays it, but because there again, if this were an American film, he would start chewing up the scenery and would have like John Carradine, curses, I failed again, or whatever.
Yeah.
That he's just like, he realizes it, he knows that he's sort of just one more disappointment, back to the drawing board. And then we get that horrible thing where we just watch her slowly disintegrating in a series of stills.
And his description as if just describing a medical procedure.
Yeah, so clinical. So clinical.
Right. Well, he put together a good crew on this, and I think I thought one of the first thing I noticed was the music, which is Maurice, is it Jarre or Jar? He had these different sort of themes, and one was sort of this, they described as sort of the jaunty carnival kind of theme, which is when Louise was hunting. Was just, whoa. I don't know. She's driving this car around this dead body, and we're hearing this.
Yeah.
So I thought that was excellent. What was the other one? There was a famous French designer designed Christiane's clothes.
I think they said it was Givenchy.
Yes. So that was another one. And then the other one where I just had a total like jaw-dropping moment, because we spent a bunch of time in our last episode talking about Planet of the Vampires, and how Bava used one of the techniques he used was called the Schüfftan technique or process. And then
that was so long ago that we did the movie.
Yeah, we almost didn't remember. And then we look, and it says the cinematographer was Eugen Shüfftan, who's best remembered for developing the Schüfftan process. Like, what?
Crazy.
What are the odds of that? I think that's why Daphne picked this movie.
Crazy.
I think she.
I had it all planned out. Yeah.
But he's an amazing cinematographer.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. This is one of those films that makes you wish that black and white never went away. Then I watch something in beautiful color. I'm like, oh no, Technicolor needs to come back. But if you have good craftsmen, if you have people who know how to make it work, either one, black and white can be absolutely gorgeous, and certainly color can be too. But I can't imagine in color that operation scene would be brutal.
Yeah.
It would be hard.
All right. He even, I believe he even said that. Somebody had suggested that he do a remake in color, and he was horrified because, as he says, he doesn't consider this a horror film, although most people consider it definitely horrifying aspects. Or, Bill, you were talking about influences, and it's actually kind of amazing. I was reading in someplace that Jess Franco actually has a couple of movies that are pretty well known to be based on this. Maybe that's not a surprise. I don't know.
If a man makes 200 movies, there's probably going to be a few that are based on Eyes Without a Face. It's yeah. But Franco is one of my least favorite filmmakers, but I do admire the fact that he made 200 movies and he made them his way, about the themes that he cared about. I just don't find his filmmaking appealing, but I know people who love his stuff. So God bless him. And if I were going to rip off a movie, I could think of worse. Listen, I'd make my whole career doing nothing but versions of The Seven Samurai, Eyes Without a Face, all the film, Attack of the Crab Monsters, all the films that I love, and no shame in that.
So have you seen Adam Age Vampire?
Yeah.
It says that was influenced by it as well.
Peter Cushing movie called Corruption, where Peter plays the Mad Doctor role.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, 1968.
There's a bunch of them.
And more recently, there was a film, and I haven't seen this, although it's been recommended to me by several people. The Skin I Live In.
Yeah.
That's L.
Bundy.
No, I should know how to pronounce his name. Pedro
Almodovar.
Yeah.
Pedro Almodovar.
For some reason,
even what was it? Vanilla Sky, where Tom Cruise is wearing the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just such an iconic. Even people who've never seen the movie, like everyone here who hadn't seen it until recently, you saw those pictures. It's one of those. It's every frame is a painting, so it's one of those things they just stick into a book on movies, and then it starts haunting you, and then you're like, where can I find this movie? And for a long time, the answer was good luck. As far as I know, Horror Chamber of Dr. Faustus never showed ever in New York in all the years I was growing up, because I was looking for it. I scanned TV Guide for that to show up, and it never did.
Did you, Jeff? Did you see or any of you guys see the interview with Del Toro? It was just a really short interview with him. It was on the Criterion Channel. Him talking about being influenced, how he was influenced, and I haven't seen this movie, but a Kronos or something.
Yes.
Yeah, he
awesome
said.
Movie.
Yeah, I definitely have to see it now after this. But he said that the scene where she calls her fiance Jacques, I think Jacques is his name, and doesn't speak, and then one time, he does speak. He said that he used that in that movie Kronos as someone, a ghost or something, calling a loved one and not being able to speak.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh yeah, that's right. She couldn't, she was calling out to her love, and she couldn't
catch that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm not
surprised. He said, yeah.
I'm not surprised that Del Toro would be a fan of this. It's
Guillermo has his way. He has his way for sure.
He does. Well, I think Daphne, is there anything left here that you would like to talk about that we haven't talked about? I think. Well, go ahead. I'll answer my question, I guess.
Yeah, there's probably so much that I don't know if Chad will get to bed on time, but I did like the I really liked the lady and the character Edna. the actress that played Edna and the character, and I like how she was kind of getting wise to that something wasn't right with Lisa, and I felt like, oh yeah, we know that feeling when this isn't. She's like, where is this so far away, and why? And she could just tell that something was wrong, and I don't know, something about that. Like I appreciated that there was a lot of women in this movie. Many times they were just there to, for skin, but I don't know. I just felt like, I don't know if it was the actresses or if it was, the actors, or if it was the script, but I kind of, I felt for each of them. I felt for the first woman that is in the car, mostly just because her father was so concerned about her. I mean, their humanity, even though they were just, fodder and stuff. I really like that. And I just think, again, here's an old movie that has all these kind of really cool characters and performances that, maybe now you'd watch something and you'd be like, just another person getting chopped up or whatever.
Right.
Well, you don't care about.
She's another one. She's another one. If you look at her IMDb photo, she's got a definite Audrey Hepburn air about her.
Yeah.
That photo. But that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because the two women that play sort of the victims, one gets away and one doesn't. Edna Juliette Maniel and I believe this IMDb does its thing. Yvette Etienne. No, that's the mother of the sick child. Let's see what happened to the other. Well, that's just irritating. I tried to dig through because they weren't really giving them credit, and they had sizable parts, I thought.
And when she whacked Luis on the head, that was a good solid solid hit on the head.
I think it's Brigitte Jocelyn. Is she Juliet? I believe.
I didn't look at I should have looked into them more, but I didn't. But yeah, she.
Well, they don't have big parts, but they are key, and they're very believable, I think. Whitney, did we talk? You mentioned when you talked about your first impressions about the different ways, I think the roles of the women and the way they're treated, that we covered that.
In a sense, yes, because Daphne brought up a point of she wasn't sure if it was in the way it was written, how things were written, or if it was just how the characters had to play off of each other. And I feel like maybe it's a combination of the two. And I feel like there's layers of feminine energies. There's the suppressed, which is obviously Christiane. And then you have the victims having that energy of just being the ultimate victims. They're the faces. They're going to be the faceless. And then you have the one that has you have the fight or flight, and then Edna was the one that was determined something wasn't right and just triggered her to just take off. So I felt like there were just layers of how things would be responsive to and from these women, and how to depict ultimately how they would be.
Same with Louise in that.
Yes.
Yes.
Chad, any final comments?
I like this movie.
Okay.
No.
Pithy.
I mean, we've said all the good things about it. I'm glad we watched it. I've never seen it. I always heard about it, and was just really, really pleasantly surprised at how much I really, really like this film now. And when we watch movies like this, I'm glad we do movies like this, because the there's always somebody out there that was maybe like me that has never seen it before. And you kind of hope when we do these movies that it'll be somebody else's first time watching it, but because we liked it or something like that. And I hope that's the case. If anybody is listening or watching us now that has not seen this, please watch it. Please watch it. It's a very, very, at times heart-wrenching movie. And that's how it was for me. I just felt so emotionally tied up in it from the performances. And so, yeah, it's a great movie. It really, really is a great movie. So if you have not seen it, do yourself a favor and see it.
Mr. Mulligan.
Well, I mean, I love this film, and it just does something that not very many movies are able to do, and I wish more could, but it obviously takes a tremendous amount of talent to pull it off, to make horror beautiful. And I think being horror films are subversive by their nature. Being a horror fan is a subversive thing because we should fear death. Death is scary. Death is final. It's the end of at least this life. Death is something that you should fear and avoid and try not to think of as much as possible. And we, as horror fans, seek it out for entertainment, which to me is just about as subversive as it can get. And at the same
time, Bill, if I can intercede,
sure,
it is. We should be afraid of that, and I think we are as horror fans afraid of that. But this provides us with a catharsis.
We face it. Yeah,
we face it. We face it in our own way.
Just face it. It's one thing if you're afraid of swimming, so you jump into the pool because you want to learn how to swim. But we're taking it a step further. We're actually entertained by it. We want it to be scarier. We're disappointed if it's not scary enough. We're actually seeking out the worst aspects of it and everything. Not to necessarily, now I'm not afraid to die because I saw what happens if you tussle with Jason. In comparison, old age is a gift. But no, there's just something weird about it. And I understand when there's some people like, oh, so you like horror movies? What's wrong with your childhood? I get it. They're wrong, but I get it. That's probably a normal reaction, and we're not normal. But then when you take it one step further and you take death, and especially gruesome, horrific mutilation, it's awful, and eaten alive by dogs and everything, and then manage to turn it into something beautiful, something like I say, every frame of this is gorgeous, even when horrible things are happening. That's amazing. That's a real neat trick.
Well, it's beautiful to see sweet revenge when someone does those things to people. So
it is. Although, I don't feel, I guess the ending of it, I didn't feel really the sense of, oh, good. I always like it when the bad guy gets thrown in the volcano or something, because at this point I was so invested in her character.
Right.
And it's true, the father dies, but that's sort of an afterthought. She's just been broken. She's like,
right.
And I don't, again, I almost think of it like a fairy tale. We don't really wonder what happens when Hansel and Gretel go back to their horrible parents. It's just, and they lived happily ever after. And I hope she wandered off into the woods and the animals took care of her like Cinderella or something. I don't even know. It's the end, and it's a beautiful image. And
the thing was, she was free.
Yeah.
She was
finally free.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which can be scary, just as scary in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But she was ready to die. So
exactly.
That's
she was begging to die.
Yes.
She was begging to die, but she walked out of there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I say something? One other thing real quick. When her dad died, I didn't notice it until I watched it again. Boy, they did a pretty decent job. I think one of his eyes was torn open.
Oh, yeah, they did.
I was like, whoa, the second time I saw it, I was like, wow.
Yeah. Well, it's like,
it was his
nasty.
face, too. His face.
Yeah, his face and his eye was,
wasn't quite as surgical when the dogs did it.
No.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think that kind of wraps us up. But we do have some feedback from our buddy Alistair Hughes, and it's our own fault because we did a bunch of Hammer films in a row. I don't mean it that way, Al. We love your thing. So, who wants to? Chad, you want to read Al's feedback again? This one's on Quatermass in the Pit, episode 93.
Do a New Zealand accent.
Uh-oh.
Oh my God. Well, Grue believers, that's it for this episode. But every 2 weeks, no, that's not the right.
I take it back. And I
Sorry, Jeff.
The nation of New Zealand.
Sorry. It's just so past my bedtime. Dear pit digging Grue-Crew. This happened last time, didn't it?
Yes, yes.
Dear Blues Clues, say it with me. Quatermass rhymes with crater smash, not quarterstaff. Only Al can be telling us how smart he is, and it's okay, right?
I think it's cute that he thinks we know what a quarterstaff is.
Right. I'm surprised he thinks we know what a crater smash is.
Yeah.
But seriously, you did a wonderful job covering this tremendous, thought-provoking classic. Thank you, as always, for your wit and wisdom, and so great to see Daphne. She was born to be a Grue-Crew woman. I've always believed Professor Bernard Quatermass, or Quater Smash, or is it Smashing Craters, was a forerunner to the ever-changing Doctor Who was played by no less than 7 different actors in his long career. And like Chad's favorite, hip flask-toting, toupee sporting version Brian Donlevy, the Pit's Andrew Keir also returned to the role. Yeah, what's wrong with Brian Donlevy? He looks like, you know, as soon as I get this rocket design, I'm gonna have to go break a few legs to get production money for the boss.
Gotta punch this guy out.
In a 1996 radio drama called The Quatermass Memoirs, he plays an aged, guilt-ridden version of the character. In a mix of fact and fiction, grumpy old Quatermass is interviewed by a persistent young journalist, and this is interwoven by real interviews given by creator Nigel Neal himself. Neal explains that his own horrified reaction to 1958 race riots in England forced him to imagine what could possibly cause such primitive hatred against others, simply because they were perceived to be different. Quatermass and the Pit became his exploration and personal catharsis of this terrible event. I happen to think this particular Hammer film version might just be peak Quatermass and was never better. But to return to Chad's favorite portrayal, you damn well better. I've attached a mocked-up film poster featuring the Hammer Avengers, Father Sandor, Dr. Van Helsing, Professor Quatermass, and Captain Kronos head-to-head with the undead. Because really, Brian Donlevy just had to be Hammer's Captain America. Keep doing what you do, Classic Crew. You're a quart of class. He just keeps on with that crap, doesn't he? Damn, broke my own rule. Love, Al. Thanks, Al.
So did he make this poster?
Yeah.
I think it said he did. In the
that's a work of art right there. He should mark it.
Well, he says I've attached a mocked up. I assume he did because he put Brian Donlevy in there.
It's good enough if Al did it, but if he paid somebody to do it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Al's he's an artist, so I would
assume
assume
he's talented. Well, yes,
he definitely is. Yeah, Brian looks like he's wondering where the gin is. It's
yeah.
He married Bela Lugosi's ex-wife.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
interesting.
Old trivia thing, and he fought Gamera. He fought Gamera and won. So you know, man.
So
I'd buy him a drink.
That's some good, insightful stuff there from Alistair Hughes, and I appreciate the information about. I had read that about Nigel Neal, but I don't believe that we actually talked about it, or maybe we did. I don't know. Seems like we said he was trying to recreate things he'd been through with these weird, crazy riots, that are in the movie. And somehow or another seems familiar now. I think we did talk about it really vaguely because I remember saying that same line. Great stuff, Alan. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that and listening. Yeah. Well, Grue believers, that's it.
Hold on. Nope. Let's hear from the rest of you mugs out there.
Yeah.
Don't make Alistair do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, you're making Alistair do all the heavy stuff. Let's hear from the rest of you. Matter of fact, I dare you to write us
McHatey face. AKA Brian Dunleavy, we're gonna sick him on you, you know.
Yeah, let's see your Photoshop skills. Put some severed arms in there. We'll show it.
Monkeys with scalpels. That's what I want to see.
All right.
Oh, and by the way,
get carried away.
so we do have a Patreon. I don't know. Yeah.
Patreon thing.
Patreon.
That's the
we got one
official
of those
title.
Patreon things. But sign up for that if you can. We appreciate it. That money helps pay for not for us, but for basically the electronics and the hosting and space and that kind of stuff.
Oh, Jeff isn't getting paid? No one. Okay.
Who's getting paid?
What?
Wait, somebody's getting paid?
Nothing.
I'm not getting paid. You getting paid? I'm not getting paid.
Nobody's getting paid. Whatever.
I'm getting paid.
So anyway,
There's pay?
Yeah.
just a couple bucks a month is enough, or maybe I don't know what the breakdowns are. But one of the things you get Decades of Horror a couple weeks early when we record on time. But even if we don't, you still get it early.
Yeah. You get to walk around with all your coworkers like, oh man, that Decades of Horror last night was great. Like, what? I haven't seen it yet. What's it about? Wouldn't you like to know? Watch them seethe with jealousy by the water fountain. What does he know that I don't
Or
know?
something like that. And please, you could be listening to this on audio, but we do have a Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel now, and you can see 3 of our ugly mugs and 2 fine-looking mugs. Yeah,
Is this a throwback to the big walk Daphne said at the beginning?
Maybe. I don't know.
Anyway, your
comes
Patreon dollars
around.
will help me for my plastic surgery to help me look so I don't scare small children.
Ooh.
Yeah. Very good. So, yes, like, subscribe, get
Rate us on
notifications,
iTunes.
make comments. All right. That's it for this episode, but every 2 weeks we'll be focusing on a specific film between 1920 and 1969. Next up is one chosen by Whitney. What are we watching next?
The Bad Seed.
Oh.
This is never mind.
Starring Leroy.
Oh,
I can't think of anything to say that would get me in trouble. So this is a great movie. So I'm excited to talk about this. Good 50s
I'm looking forward to it.
thriller.
Yeah.
Plenty of ways to stay in touch with us, which we already talked about. But if all that stuff doesn't work, then send us an email, feedback@gruesomemagazine.com, or make comments at Gruesome Magazine's YouTube channel or the Gruesome Magazine's HNR and DOH podcast Facebook group. Catch us again here in 2 weeks for another great horror movie of the classic era, as only Decades of Horror can do it. Say goodnight, guys.
Night, guys. Night.
See you, suckers.